The year is 1258. The Mongol hordes have ravaged the east, leaving nothing but smoke and ruin in their wake. The once mighty Seljuk Sultanate of Rum teeters on the brink of collapse, shattered by internal strife and external pressures. In the west, the Byzantine Empire, the last bastion of Christian Rome, is a fading star, casting its final rays across the crumbling cities of Anatolia. And yet, in the midst of this chaos, from a small tribe of nomadic Turks, a leader arises, a man whose name would echo across continents and centuries. His life would be the genesis of an empire that would reshape the world. Osman Ghazi. This is not the story of a single man. This is the tale of a vision, of dreams whispered in the night, of battles fought in fire and blood. The rise of Osman Ghazi is the rise of a people, a vision of conquest, of fate intertwined with faith. Join us as we unravel the life of Osman Ghazi, founder of the Ottoman Empire, warrior of destiny, and the man who transformed the tides of history forever. Osman Ghazi's story begins in the heart of Anatolia, in a small village called Sogut. Born in 1258 into the Kai tribe, part of the Oghuz Turks, Osman entered a world on the edge of destruction and opportunity. His father, Ertugrul Bey, was the leader of the Kai, a tribe that had migrated westward, fleeing the terror of the Mongol invasions that had swept through Central Asia. From an early age, Osman was exposed to the life of a warrior. The Kai tribe was small, but resilient. Like other nomadic Turkish tribes, they had mastered the art of survival on the steppe: horse riding, archery, and guerrilla warfare. These skills would later define the Ottoman military, but for Osman it was simply a way of life. Yet, his youth was not marked by battle alone. In the village of Sogut, Osman learned not only to wield a sword, but also the importance of leadership, unity, and diplomacy. His father, Ertugrul, was not just a warrior, he was a statesman who navigated the treacherous politics of the Seljuk Sultanate and the Byzantine Empire. Ertugrul's ability to forge alliances with both the declining Seljuks and the embattled Byzantines ensured the survival of the Kai in an increasingly hostile world. Osman learned these lessons well, and they would shape his approach to leadership. But there was more to Osman's upbringing than politics and war. His spiritual mentor, Sheikh Edebali, would impart the values and religious zeal that would guide him throughout his life. Sheikh Edebali, a prominent religious leader, became a father figure to Osman. Edebali's teachings were rooted in Islam, but they also emphasized justice, humility, and the divine destiny that awaited those who served the righteous cause. These ideals took root in Osman's heart, blending with his ambition to unite the fractured lands of Anatolia under one banner. And then, there was the dream. It was during one such night in the home of Sheikh Edebali that Osman had a dream. A dream that would define not only his future but the future of an entire empire. In his dream, Osman saw a moon rising from the chest of Sheikh Edebali, entering his own. From his body, a great tree emerged, its roots spreading across the world, its branches casting shade over vast lands, from the east to the west. When Osman shared his dream with Edebali, the Sheikh interpreted it as a divine sign. He foretold that Osman and his descendants were destined to rule a great empire that would spread across the world. It was a vision of divine purpose, one that would fuel Osman's rise from a small tribal leader to the founder of the Ottoman dynasty. To understand Osman's rise, we must first understand the world he inherited. In the 13th century, Anatolia was a battleground. The once powerful Seljuk Sultanate of Rum was crumbling, torn apart by internal divisions and external threats. The Mongols had shattered its authority, and various Turkish beyliks, or small principalities, were emerging from its ruins. Meanwhile, the Byzantine Empire, once the greatest Christian empire in the world, was in terminal decline. Its armies were weakened, its borders shrinking. Civil wars and external threats had reduced it to a shadow of its former self. To the north, the Mongols threatened to overrun everything. To the south, the Mamluks of Egypt kept a close watch, and in between lay the small, yet growing, Turkish tribes that were beginning to assert their independence. This chaotic backdrop was the world Osman was born into, a fractured landscape where opportunity lurked in the ruins of once great empires. Osman understood that in this world of decay and fragmentation, the future belonged not to the strongest, but to the most cunning. He saw opportunity where others saw chaos. After the vision of his dream, Osman Ghazi's ambitions grew. He knew that to fulfill his destiny, he needed to expand his influence beyond the modest borders of his tribe's lands. His first targets were the small, vulnerable Byzantine outposts that dotted the frontier of Anatolia. The Byzantine Empire was but a shadow of its former self. Its outposts in Anatolia were poorly defended, isolated from the core of the empire, and led by local governors who lacked the resources to maintain control. Osman saw an opportunity. These outposts were not only strategically vital, but vulnerable. By taking them, he could create a buffer zone around his own lands and project his power over the region. Osman's strategy was simple yet effective. He did not launch large-scale assaults on heavily fortified cities, but rather focused on smaller, more vulnerable Byzantine forts. His guerrilla tactics, combined with the speed and mobility of his mounted warriors, allowed him to strike quickly and retreat before the enemy could organize a counterattack. One of Osman's first significant victories came in the late 13th century when he captured the fortress of Kulakahizar. This small but strategically located fort was the gateway to Byzantine territory. Its capture marked the beginning of Osman's rise as a powerful leader in the region. This fortress, though small in comparison to the great cities of the Byzantine Empire, was of immense strategic importance. It sat on a key route between the Byzantine heartlands and the fragmented Turkish beyliks. Whoever controlled Kulakahizar could control the flow of trade and troops in the region. Osman's strategy was based on precision and patience. Rather than launching a full-scale assault that could cost the lives of many of his warriors, he opted for a siege. His men surrounded the fortress, cutting off supplies and reinforcements. The defenders, isolated and under pressure, could only wait as their food and water supplies dwindled. Weeks passed, and the pressure on the Byzantine defenders mounted. They attempted to send messengers to nearby outposts, begging for reinforcements, but Osman's forces intercepted them every time. Slowly, the fortress's defenders began to lose hope. When the time came for the final attack, Osman's forces struck swiftly and decisively. Under the cover of darkness, his warriors scaled the weakened walls, catching the Byzantines off guard. By morning, the fortress had fallen, and Osman stood victorious. The fall of Kulakahizar marked a significant turning point in the rise of Osman Ghazi. More than just a military victory, it demonstrated Osman's strategic brilliance and ability to outmaneuver his enemies. His triumph sent shockwaves through the neighboring Byzantine governors, revealing that Osman was no ordinary tribal leader. His ambitions were far greater. With a vision that extended beyond mere raids, he sought to unite the fractured Turkish tribes and lay the foundation of a new power in Anatolia. Osman's victories, particularly at Kulakahizar, bolstered his prestige not only among his own people but also among other Turkish beyliks and tribes. Attracted by the prospect of glory and wealth under Osman's leadership, many rallied to his side, drawn to the emerging legend of Osman Ghazi. However, Osman's rise was not solely due to his military prowess. He understood that alliances were essential to building lasting power. One of the most pivotal relationships Osman cultivated was with Sheikh Edebali, a prominent religious leader whose support gave him legitimacy in the eyes of other Muslim leaders. This alliance, both spiritual and political, helped solidify Osman's claim to leadership. Additionally, Osman maintained connections with the remnants of the Seljuk Sultanate, reinforcing his authority and laying the groundwork for the future Ottoman state. The significance of Kulakahizar went beyond territorial conquest. While the victory secured control over the surrounding region and instilled fear in the remaining Byzantine outposts, it also marked Osman's transformation from a mere tribal chieftain to a ruler with a greater purpose. His conquests were no longer just about plunder, but about settlement and governance, as he began establishing the foundations of what would eventually become the Ottoman Empire. Osman's army, composed primarily of Ghazis, warriors fighting in the name of Islam, was not merely a band of raiders. It was a disciplined and highly motivated force driven by both the promise of spoils and religious fervor. These men saw themselves as part of a holy war against the Christian Byzantines, drawn from across the Turkish world to fight for Osman's cause. Their victories were not only for Osman but for the spread of Islam, and they believed that they were part of a divine mission. Osman himself was more than a military leader. He was regarded as a champion of the faith, chosen by God to lead the Turks in their struggle. His famous dream, in which he saw a tree spreading across the world, was interpreted by many of his followers as a sign that his conquests were divinely ordained. This perception of divine favor strengthened Osman's position, inspiring devotion among his followers and adding to the momentum behind his growing power. In every battle and conquest, Osman's vision of uniting the Turkish tribes and creating a new era in Anatolia became more tangible. The fall of Kulakahizar was not just another raid, it was a declaration that Osman's rise to power was inevitable, as was the emergence of the empire that would carry his name. Under Osman's leadership, the Ghazis became more than just soldiers. They were part of a movement that would sweep across Anatolia, laying the foundations for an empire that would one day stretch from the heart of Europe to the deserts of Arabia. The strength of Osman's army lay not only in its numbers but in its speed and mobility. The Ghazis were expert horsemen, able to strike quickly and disappear into the mountains before their enemies could retaliate. This style of warfare, honed over centuries by the nomadic Turks, would become a hallmark of Ottoman military tactics in the centuries to come. With each victory, more warriors flocked to Osman's banner, swelling the ranks of his army. And with each victory, Osman's reputation as a leader of destiny grew. In the early dawn of 1302, Osman Ghazi faced one of his most formidable challenges yet. The Battle of Bapheus. It was not just another skirmish but a confrontation that would define his legacy. As rumors of his rapid expansion spread, the Byzantine Empire recognized Osman as a growing threat. In response, they assembled a considerable force, determined to crush the burgeoning power he represented before it could threaten the very heart of Byzantium. The battle commenced at midday, with Osman's forces charging bravely toward the Byzantine lines. The Ghazis, fueled by a fierce religious fervor and a desire for glory, pressed forward, their hearts pounding with the thrill of battle. Osman's strategy was to exploit the enemy's vulnerabilities and break their lines quickly. Initially, Osman's strategy seemed to pay off. His forces broke through the Byzantine lines, sending shockwaves through the enemy ranks. The speed and ferocity of the Ghazis caught the Byzantines off guard, and for a moment victory appeared within reach. However, the Byzantine forces were not to be underestimated. The general, realizing the critical situation, rallied his troops and launched a counteroffensive. With precision and coordination, they reorganized and struck back at Osman's flanks, encircling the Turkish forces and turning the tide of the battle. The tide of battle quickly shifted. What began as a promising offensive turned into a desperate struggle for survival. The Byzantine cavalry charged relentlessly, pushing Osman's men back, cutting them off from retreat. In the face of overwhelming numbers and superior tactics, the Ghazis found themselves in a perilous situation. Osman fought with unparalleled bravery, rallying his men, encouraging them to stand firm. But as the sun dipped lower in the sky, it became clear that this day would not belong to him. In a fierce and valiant effort, Osman managed to retreat with a fraction of his army, a bittersweet victory amid the echoes of defeat. The Battle of Bapheus was a harsh lesson for Osman Ghazi, one that would shape his understanding of warfare and leadership in the years to come. Though the battle ended in defeat, Osman refused to let despair take root. Instead, he viewed the loss as an opportunity to learn and grow stronger. He began to understand that military might must be tempered with wisdom, strategy, and the ability to adapt. Gathering his remaining forces, Osman reflected on the battle. He recognized that victory would not come easily, it would require patience, cunning, and the unwavering support of his people. With renewed determination, he set forth to rebuild his strength, not only as a military leader but as a wise ruler. In the aftermath of the Battle of Bapheus, Osman Ghazi recognized the need for a robust governance structure that would not only solidify his power but also earn the loyalty of his people. He understood that to build an empire, he must cultivate not just warriors but a thriving community. Osman began to implement a system of governance that balanced military strength with civic responsibility. He established councils made up of local leaders and wise men to address the needs and concerns of the populace. These councils played a crucial role in maintaining order and promoting trade and commerce throughout his growing territory. Trade flourished under Osman's rule, as he encouraged merchants to establish routes and open markets. The strategic location of Sogut, nestled among trade routes, allowed the region to thrive economically. By fostering an environment conducive to trade, Osman strengthened the economic backbone of his nascent empire. Education and knowledge became cornerstones of Osman's governance. He established schools and sought out scholars, promoting learning as a means to enrich the lives of his people. By encouraging the exchange of ideas, Osman nurtured a culture of innovation and intellectual growth that would become a hallmark of the Ottoman Empire. Central to his rule was a commitment to justice. Osman believed that a fair and just ruler would win the loyalty of his subjects. He was known for his equitable treatment of both Muslims and non-Muslims, seeking to foster harmony among the diverse communities that inhabited his lands. His reputation for fairness would become legendary, earning him the respect and love of his people. As he laid the foundations for governance, Osman Ghazi was also aware of the greater historical forces at play. The remnants of the Byzantine Empire were still present, and as he expanded his influence, he knew that challenges would arise. Yet, armed with the lessons learned from his past, he was ready to face them. As the years passed, Osman Ghazi continued to lead his people with wisdom and strength. However, the relentless march of time began to weigh heavily upon him. In 1326, as he neared the end of his life, Osman reflected on the journey that had brought him to this moment, the struggles, the victories, and the dreams that had guided him. On his deathbed, Osman called for his sons and trusted advisors. He understood that his legacy would be defined not only by his conquests, but by the character and vision he passed on to the next generation. In those final moments, he imparted words of wisdom, urging them to uphold the principles of justice, unity, and resilience that he had fought so hard to establish. Osman's son Orhan stood ready to inherit the mantle of leadership. With his father's blessings, Orhan would carry forth the vision of a united empire. Osman's teachings would guide him as he sought to expand and strengthen the fledgling state. Though Osman Ghazi did not live to witness the full realization of his dreams, his legacy was undeniable. Under Orhan's leadership, the Ottomans would capture Bursa in 1326, establishing it as the first capital of the Ottoman Empire. The foundations laid by Osman would prove pivotal in the empire's subsequent expansion. The empire Osman founded would go on to dominate vast territories, becoming one of the most influential empires in history. His vision of unity and strength would inspire generations, shaping the identity of the Ottoman Empire and influencing the course of world history. Osman Ghazi's life story is one of resilience, ambition, and unwavering determination. From humble beginnings as a tribal leader to the founder of a vast empire, his journey is a testament to the power of dreams and the spirit of a leader who dared to defy the odds. Osman Ghazi's legacy endures, a beacon of inspiration for future generations. His story teaches us that every great empire begins with a dream, a vision that, when nurtured with determination and faith, can change the course of history.